Ever get that feeling like the world is run by math that you barely remember from school?
Yeah, like all those formulas and equations you thought you'd never see again.
Exactly like algebra.
Oh yeah, algebra definitely one of those things people think they left behind in the classroom.
Right. But today we're diving deep into how algebra is actually everywhere, like secretly running the show.
It's true, you use it way more than you realize.
So get ready to see the world through algebra-colored glasses because we're about to break down
Yeah, we're gonna look at five big ones.
5 key
For
areas,
linear equations,
algebraic
what
equations,
inequality assumption.
ready to unlock the hidden power of algebra.
Let's do it. Okay, first up, linear equations. I used to think they were just for like figuring out how many pizzas to order for a party.
Uh-huh. Classic example, right?
But seriously, though, I started using them for budgeting and realized how helpful they are.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Uh,
like, just knowing how many hours you need to work to cover your bills. Exactly. But it turns out linear equations are way more powerful than just basic budgeting.
Way more. Like, have you ever thought about how GPS works?
GPS. Not really. I just assume it's magic.
Haha, right. But actually, it's linear equations in action. GPS uses them to calculate the fastest route factoring in things like.
Traffic and speed limits.
Yep, and distance too. It's
You're
constantly crunching numbers to get you where you need to go on time.
mind blown. So GPS is like a secret algebra machine in my pocket.
Pretty much. And it's not just GPS. Think about things like adjusting recipes.
Oh yeah, you mean like doubling or having the ingredients?
Exactly. That's using proportions which are based on linear equations.
Wow, okay, so I'm using algebra in the kitchen without even knowing it.
You are. And how about something like calculating fuel efficiency for your car?
You're telling me that's linear equations too?
It is. It's all about the relationship between miles driven and gas used.
Okay, linear equations officially everywhere. Now, what about those quadratic equations? Those always felt a bit more intimidating,
You do seem a bit more complex.
like with those x squared terms and all.
Right, but their applications are just as cool. Remember how you mentioned using linear equations for budgeting?
Yeah.
Well, quadratic equations can take that to the next level, like with investments.
Investments. You mean like figuring out how much money I'll have in 10 years?
Exactly. Quadratic equations can model the growth of investments, taking into account interest rates and compounding.
Oh, wow. So they can help you plan for the future
They can. And they're also used in business to maximize profits.
because costs and revenue aren't always a straight line.
Precisely. Quadratic equations help analyze those curves and find the sweet spot.
So they're like next level budgeting tools for both individuals and businesses.
You got it.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the classic physics application, calculating the trajectory of things like.
Like throwing a ball or launching a rocket.
Yep, that's all quadratic equations in action. But think about this. Those same principles are used to design satellite dishes.
Satellite dishes. How so?
They have that parabolic shape, right? Well, that curve is determined by a quadratic equation. It helps them receive signals efficiently.
So the same math that sends rockets into space helps us watch TV. That's amazing.
It is. And don't forget about solar panels. Their curved shape is also based on quadratic equations to capture as much sunlight as possible.
So quadratic equations are helping us harness renewable energy too.
Absolutely. They're all about optimizing shapes for specific purposes.
Okay, on to polynomials. Now those were a bit of a mystery to me in school. I never really understood what they were for.
Yeah, they can seem pretty abstract, but trust me, they have real-world applications too. Think of them like.
Like building blocks.
Yeah, exactly. They're used to model complex shapes and structures. Like imagine you're building a bridge.
Oh man, that's a lot of weight and stress on that structure.
Exactly. And engineers use polynomials to make sure it can handle it all.
So how do they do that?
They use equations to represent the load-bearing capacity of the bridge at different points.
So they can see where the weak spots might be.
Exactly. Polynomials help them figure out how much weight the bridge can support and where it needs extra reinforcement.
So it's like a safety check before they even start building.
Yep, and it's not just bridges. Polynomials are also used to design airplanes, roller coasters, medical implants, all kinds of things.
Wow. So polynomials are basically making sure the world doesn't fall apart.
Pretty much. They're ensuring the structural integrity of so many things we rely on.
Okay, next up, inequalities. These are something I feel like I use all the time without even realizing it.
Oh, like when?
Like when I'm trying to decide which streaming service is the best deal or how many errands I can squeeze in before a meeting.
perfect examples. Inequalities are all about making choices within limits.
Right. It's not about finding one exact answer, but figuring out the best option within certain constraints.
Exactly. Like with budgeting, you might have a limited amount of money and need to figure out how to allocate it.
Or like when you're trying to pack for a trip and you have limited suitcase space.
Exactly. Inequalities help you make the most of those limitations.
And it's not just personal stuff, right? Businesses use inequalities too.
Oh, yeah, all the time. Think about logistics and supply chain management.
Sounds complicated.
It is. Companies have to figure out the most efficient ways to transport goods, manage inventory, and meet deadlines.
And they use inequalities to do that.
They do. It helps them optimize everything while staying within their budget and other limitations.
So it's like solving a giant puzzle with a bunch of moving pieces.
Exactly. And inequalities provide the framework for finding the best solution.
Finally, let's talk functions.
Yeah.
I always found them interesting, but I never fully grasped how they work in the real world.
Oh, they're everywhere, especially in the digital world. Think of functions as the instructions that make computer programs work.
Instructions.
Yeah, like every time you use a search engine, you
Okay.
type in your search terms,
Right.
and the search engine uses a function to process those terms and find the most relevant results.
So it's like a recipe for finding information.
Kind of. It takes your input, does some calculations, and spits out an output.
And it's the same for things like social media algorithms.
Yep, they use functions to determine what posts you see in your feed and even what ads are shown to you.
So all those targeted ads are because of functions.
Yep, those functions analyze your online behavior and try to predict what you're interested in.
That's both impressive and kind of creepy.
Yeah, the power of functions.
Well, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener. I never realized how much algebra is woven into our everyday lives.
It's truly fascinating how something that seems so abstract can have such a concrete impact on the world.
It's like a secret code that's running everything behind the scenes.
Exactly. And now that you know a little bit more about it, you can start to see it everywhere.
I think I will. So as we go about our day, let's all try to spot the algebra in action. It's like a fun little game.
Absolutely. And here's a final thought. If algebra is this pervasive, what other mathematical concepts might be secretly shaping our lives without us even knowing it?
Ooh, that's a good one. Keep those brains buzzing, folks, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
See you then.